Today, I am going to be working through some energy that I have been going through personally, which to me makes a lot of sense with the energy that we've had over the past couple of weeks of this really transformative time, especially with Mercury retrograde going on, all the different planetary things that are kind of happening. So, one of the things that you'll learn about me as we get to know each other a little bit more is that I am all about being upfront and honest and being open about my journey because I feel like in the spiritual space, there is sometimes gatekeeping that happens when it comes to spiritual mentors and just not being like fully authentically open about what's kind of going on with them and their own experience. So I feel like me talking about my own experiences, my own struggles will help to make you understand that I am an actual real person that goes through my own struggles, my own strife, all that kind of stuff. So as I've been building my business, I've been a teacher for the past 10 years and I still do some teaching stuff because, like I said, I'm building something that is growing over time. It's not, whenever you start a business, it's not something that happens right away. It's, a series of launches, it's a series of checkpoints that kind of happen along the way. It's not just one moment where everything kind of comes together. And I feel like that's kind of the way it's depicted in movies and TV shows. It's like, this person has this sudden burst of inspiration, and with this sudden burst of inspiration, then everything comes together very quickly and then everything works out perfectly well. The honest truth is I had the download of my business in February of 2024, and in that I basically sat down and a whole weekend and wrote a book. And from there, the download continued. And while the download continued, it was a whole bunch of resources that I knew I was supposed to create and all these kind of things. And in that, I kept moving forward during that time. And as time went on, I thought, oh, this is going to be the moment where I'm going to start posting on social media, which this was in August of 2024, and everything is just gonna be so easy and everything's gonna come together very quickly. And it didn't. We're still working on that now, we being me. And it has been this slow realization that this instant gratification that we often see nowadays that people want, that's not actually a reality necessarily. A lot of times it's this choice over and over again to continue to choose the thing that you want and continue to make movement towards that. Continue to make movement towards the thing that you're ultimately trying to build. So for me, there have been many transitions over time when it comes to this and when it comes to building my business. And one of those transitions in a business sense was this year, 2026. I basically took a pause on things when it came to looking for clients. And I really sat down and reassessed the ecosystem of my business and kind of did that for about 4 months and just spent some time reevaluating and kind of shifting things within my business. And I feel like that has led me to a really great place now. Now, with that, like I said, the initial inspiration that came in for my business was in February 2024. And it is now currently July of 2026. So it's been 2 years of me building, me shifting, me trying different things, and I still am, and I always will be. And as a part of this shift and change that has been happening, I've still been in the teaching space. I've been holding space for two different things at one time, holding space for my business and holding space for me still working at times a more normal job. It's not full-time or anything like that, but still holding space for these two things. And in doing so, I decided to take a new part-time job over the summer and try working for a school online and doing something very different than I have experienced before. And in doing this school, this program that I was working with, it was much more art based, as is doing right now. It was much more art based, and right away in the interviewing process, I felt this instant excitement for this. And it felt like the perfect timing of everything, because there was going to be potentially like a little bit of a gap in my income. And it felt like this divinely led opportunity for me to be able to work in this space in education where I haven't really had the ability to do this more artwork based education. And I was super, super excited for it. Went through the whole training process and the onboarding, which there are bumps along the road. And in having the bumps along the road, there was this inner knowing that something just felt off while I was in this space. And this is one of the more difficult clear senses to really develop, because with the clear sense of claircognizance, clear knowing, it's just you have this knowing within your body, and then there's not necessarily evidence on the external to prove that evidence that you're like feeling with inside and just trusting it. So something that I was feeling with this new position that I was at was there was something that was off, and I needed to kind of advocate for myself within this space. If you're a teacher in the education field, oftentimes behind closed doors or in your classroom where your administration can't hear you, there's often talk of the issues that are going on behind the scenes when it comes to being a teacher. And we can see the things that the parents or the children don't see, and we all talk about it, and we all sit there and kind of just deal with it. So I, like many, have done this throughout my career. And something within this space of this new school that I was at told me that something was wrong. Told me that there was things that I needed to advocate for myself, like pay and training, and the way that like the training process and the onboarding process had kind of gone on. So with that, as many of us do, I went to some of my friends and said, okay, first of all, is what I'm feeling valid? As many of us do. And they said, yes, what feelings you are feeling is valid. And I said, thank you for validating me. And my friends are not the type that just validate me to validate me. They actually like, for instance, there was a time where I went to a friend and said to them, hey, can you help me with this healing process? And they looked back at me and said, why do we need my help? You don't need my help. You are a little bit more advanced than me, so you really don't need my help. Is it just that you feel like you need someone to be there for you? Yes, I felt called out, but at the same time, they were right. I could do the healing within me. It was just this sense of wanting to need someone that was kind of sitting there, you know? So in that, I begun advocating for myself and saying the things that I was kind of noticing that were issues and bringing up these things. And I, like I said, I hadn't been working for this place for very long. Like the total amount of time within the onboarding process and everything was maybe about a month and a half. It was not much time at all. And I, many of times within my process of being a teacher for the past 10 years, have not done the advocacy thing at all. And I started to question things, and their answer back was like, well, this is kind of how it is. And not only that, they were micromanaging. Their answer to that was kind of like what it normally is of, well, these are the things that we do, and this is how the process works. And like, you signed on for this. So yeah. So in that, I questioned myself so many times. And if you've ever heard of human design before, there is how you respond in a situation. Like if you're one of those people that like respond right away and have action right away, in my human design, that's not how I am. Like actually the right thing for me to do is to sit there in the energy and allow it time to really process. So between the time when like I got a message that I didn't really like and I decided to advocate for myself, like that happened on a Friday, and I didn't actually send a response until the Monday after. So I had a whole weekend where I kind of sat on things before I actually decided to advocate for myself. So it wasn't like a quick second decision. And then in that, I advocated for myself. And like I said, I got that answer back. And in getting that answer back, I still sat there and questioned myself and said, okay, what do I want to do from here? Do I even still want this position? Because there's always the question when you bring forth something that might be a mirror to someone that they might not like. It's, well, what result do I actually want out of this? Do I actually want to continue working for this company? Do I not? Like, where do I want to go from here? And in questioning those things, I actually still didn't even have the answer. I still questioned if I wanted this position or not. As time went on, I kind of thought I didn't, but I really wasn't sure if that was the case. I wasn't sure what I wanted the end result to be. All I knew was there was this internal knowing that I kind of needed to advocate for myself. I needed to advocate for myself and say what I was feeling, what I was noticing, and not only in the fact of what I was noticing just because of my own experience, but because sometimes when we raise awareness to what's going on, it's to help for the next person that comes after us. And I just felt like there was this need to do this, which again, I have not been an advocate for myself and using my voice in the past when it comes to the education space. And as I was going on this journey of like, this basically energetically for me in debating this and sitting in this energy and figuring out what I wanted to do and figuring out what I wanted my responses to be, this took up a whole day for me. Like that Monday, that was my whole Monday, was figuring out where I wanted to go from there in this situation. And in doing that, I did a healing process with myself. And in doing this healing process, I had this realization, this energy that came up for me. And in having this energy that came up for me, I realized that when I felt into my mouth, like my physical, literal mouth, it felt like there was decay there. And it felt like there was decay there because of all of the times throughout the years that I had never advocated for myself, that I had never actually used my voice for the injustices that were happening within the education space. And having this realization, there is a very close friend of mine that we don't know exactly what it's supposed to be, but we know sometime in the future we're supposed to make a change within the education space, whether it be we create a program or we create a school or whatever it is. There is some form of change that we are both supposed to do together. So in having this energy come up, I, of course, then messaged the friend and said, hey, these things are happening. And I feel like it's time for us to like actually have this conversation. She was excited. She said, absolutely. In a few weeks, let's have this conversation, like actually get this ball rolling. So in that, with all of this happening, I decided to respond again and yet again advocate for myself and say, this is what's going on. This is how I'm feeling in this situation. And I really, again, still had no idea what I wanted out of this situation. I didn't know if I wanted this job anymore. I didn't know if there was a reason why this was coming up. All I knew was there was this clear knowing of that I was supposed to be doing this. So like I said, this is on a Monday. So then the next day on Tuesday, I go outside with the dogs. I let them out. And when I let them out, I hear this sound. And I actually think it's one of the dogs that are still inside because it kind of sounds like a dog to me. And then I look up and I see it's a crow. And if you're a bird enthusiast, crows are like so very special in themselves just because like they're so very intelligent. But on top of that, like they're a very big spiritual symbol. So I finally saw the bird, and it at that point flew away. And I said, no, wait, come back, be my friend. And then I proceeded to go inside. And just let that go. So then a little time passes, not much though, that same day. After I see this crow, I get a message. So I open it up and I start reading it, and I have my computer in front of me, but I'm reading it on my phone. And something happens like where I basically skim the message, but like don't actually read it fully. And then I go to read it fully. And when I go to read it fully, it the the like app of Slack has something and it changes and it goes somewhere else within the app. And all of a sudden, the channel that I was on for this school is now on my computer. How that happened, I don't know. What in the Mercury retrograde happened? I don't know. And as that happens, I hear this voice in my head say, no. Very, like, exactly like I said. It's this very matter of fact, very simple, very monotone no. And in that moment, I think back to the crow that I saw and say to myself, oh, that's the Morgan. Because if you've ever worked with the Morgan before, she is very matter of fact. Sometimes can be a bit emotionless, not that she's without emotion, but just her tone can be emotionless. And crows are actually one of her symbols. I am kind of sitting there stunned, not really sure what to do with things, and kind of just don't even read the message, give it some time, and kind of am processing what the Morgan just told me, and walk away for a minute. And I go back and I look at my email, and I see in my email that I've gotten a termination letter from this company. And in that moment, I have emotions that come up. And in having these emotions come up, because I mean, with anyone that loses a job, anyone that gets a termination letter, it's the question of, well, okay, how am I going to do financially? Where, what it, what am I going to do? Am I okay with this? Like, I know that I have this point of advocacy, but is this actually what I wanted? Because I was even questioning that from the beginning with me standing up for myself. What did I want with standing up for myself? And then again, I went to my friends, as many of us do, and told them what was going on. And both of them basically came to me and said, well, maybe this wasn't about the job itself. Maybe it wasn't about earning income. Maybe it was about you having the opportunity to be able to work through these injustices that happen. Because one of the things that I had brought up to this company that I felt uncomfortable with when I signed my contract was the pay that I had received for my first invoice. And in that, there had been a school in the past that I had worked for. And when I worked for this school in the past, there were extenuating circumstances like language and being in a different country and a different culture and all that kind of stuff that made me feel like I wasn't able to fully have knowledge of how my pay was going. And it wasn't until there were more knowledgeable people that were around me that raised concerns that I felt within me, but I didn't know why I felt it within me. Like, I knew that there was something that was going on, but I didn't know what it was or why, because I didn't have access to the resources that I needed to like really understand why I was feeling that way. So bringing this back to what happened to me recently, I still am not fully sure or fully understanding why that situation happened to me when it came to working with this school in this position, and why I felt like I needed to advocate for myself fully. But I know part of it was so that I could release energy that had been holding me back in the education system for a very long time. And I know it was a way for the Morgan to communicate with me and speak to me. It was an opportunity for me to use my gift of claircognizance and understanding that sometimes just knowing that something feels wrong within your body, something feels wrong with what's going on, is enough for you to say no. So that is what I have for you today. And I'm going to leave you with this question, or questions, I should say. What would it feel like for you to fully listen to your intuition and your knowing and not question it, just to follow the steps and to see where they lead you. For me, in this specific story, in this specific instance, it led to me being terminated from a position. But what would it look like for you to do that? You know, thankfully, I'm in a position where this termination isn't going to affect me severely. I have other things that I do, other things that help me along the way, and I've built a structure within myself that I can feel financially secure. And not only that, I have the support around me and I have the ability within myself to hold belief within myself. Um, so there's that question. And then the other question is not only with the clear knowing of actually following that, one of the things with clear knowing is actually being able to trust yourself and trust yourself that you can be there for yourself along the way. So, how can you show up for yourself more every single day, even if it's just today, so that you can live the life that you choose? And if you're interested in learning more about the things that I'm talking about, like trusting your intuition, or if for whatever reason in your life you're feeling like you are feeling stuck or stagnant and you just feel like you need clarity when it comes to what you're looking for in your life, feel free to look at my resource, the Clarity Map, that will help you bring clarity to the areas of your life in which you are feeling a little bit foggy.